Okay.
Yes, I was born in Russia, in a small town, and I was the third child being born, and it was on a Russian New Year's Day that I was born. And while my mother was giving birth to me, it was a holiday where peasant children came to the windows, under the windows, and singing all kinds of songs, a carol, and of the Russian New Year, and wishing everybody a good year. And my mother gave birth to me that hour. And I was raised with my two other sister and brother. And then later on, another sister was born, and later years, another brother was born. So we were five children who lived in Russia until the age I was 11 years old. And my father and my older sister left Russia. They went to America. And then they sent us money to come to America, and we were 4 children, and we all came here to my father and to my sister in the United States. And we lived on the east side. And of course, the times then were not as good as they are these days. But then my father struggled, and he made a living for us. My older sister and brother went to work. And then I too went to work as a youngster. And somehow we were all raised together, and my mother and father were wonderful to us, and they took care of us, and we got along very nicely. While I was living in Russia, I had friends, and my mother, we also had a little, what you call a little grocery store. And my father was teaching children to read and write, because they weren't allowed to go to the Russian schools at that time. And we also were learning, my father was teaching us how to read and write in Russian, because my father was very well educated in that way. He educated himself. And of course, there were hard times then, because the weather in Russia was very severe. And we, of course, got along very nicely. We didn't live very, you know, the home that we lived was a rented home. We didn't have our own house, but it was very nice. It was like in a country, away from the town. It was like on the outskirts. And the living there was very nice. And we had apple trees that came into our windows, and we wanted an apple. We just opened the window and stuck a hand out, and we got an apple from the tree, which was very nice. And then, of course, as I said, I was 11 years old when I came to this country with my other sisters and brothers. And we lived here until later on. I got older. I also went to work. And of course, time passed, and my older sister got married. And then I met my husband when I was the age 20 years old. I was 15 years old when I met my husband. And then many years passed by and we didn't see one another, and then we met again and got married, and I was 21. And we lived a wonderful life. I had 3 children, 3 daughters, and my husband, we lived for about 47 years. We were married to one another, and then my husband passed away. And here I am, living by myself. My 3 children, 3 daughters got married to very nice men and very happy, and they all have children, and the children have children, and thank God by now I have 7 great-grandchildren. I have 9 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren, and I'm very thankful to God that I am here and that I can see them and enjoy with them and see all the joy in my children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. What else can I say?
That's wonderful.
What else can I say? On the boat.
What was like coming in when you got here, and what kind of job you had, that sort of thing?
Well,
How long did it take you to come across on the boat?
And coming across.
Oh, it took us, well, we landed to England because my mother had a brother and sister living in England, in Liverpool. And we stopped, we came to Liverpool, and we visited our relatives there, and we stayed there about a week. It took us about 2 weeks to get to England, and then we stayed there about a week, and then we came to United States. And my father came to Ellis Island to pick us up, and he got an apartment for all of us, and we lived on the east side. And later on, when I got older, I went to work in a factory. I worked on novelties, feather bows. And then as I was saying before, I met my husband, and we got married when I was 21. What else? The boat. The boat, well, what's the difference? We stopped off in Germany. The boat stopped in Germany, and we all came on the deck, and the German young people came out on the where the boat stopped, and they waved to us. And then one of the young men threw a red rose, and he said that it's for that Mädchen, he said in German, for that girl, and he pointed right to me. This is for that girl. And of course they picked up the rose and they gave it to me. And I was very proud that he picked me.
What about like the language when you?
Huh?
What about the language? Learning the language and.
The language? Well, when we came here, of course, I spoke Russian. I spoke Jewish, and I had a friend whose parents knew my parents. They were from the same town, and their daughter was about my age. And she came, they brought her over to the house to see us. And she said she's going to teach me English. And she did. She was teaching me, and I really, really learned more than I learned in school, because they put me into a special class, the fourth grade, which there were young kids. I was already felt I was a big girl. I came with high heels. I was 11 years old, and I was already wearing high heels and a suit. So I felt that I don't belong there. But this is what they put me into the fourth grade, and I was very unhappy. So I didn't want to go back to school. So I went at night school. They had night school, and I went to night school. Well, of course, I learned very little, but I had to go to work. I was 13 years old. I went to factory to work.
And what about, I know the child labor laws and stuff like that.
That's right. They were after me. I worked in a place where we came by, you know, we had a passport, and the age was written in the passport. And instead of 11, my father made a 6 out of 1. So I was 16. And when I came to the factory, and my boss said to me, "How old are you?" I says, "I'm 16. He says, "Who's going to believe you that? The judge?" Well, anyhow, there were 2 floors. One floor was the office, and upstairs was the factory. And immediately there was some inspectors coming around looking for child labor, you know. And they called up upstairs that we were 2 of us like that, very young. But I was very young and short, and I had my hair with little braids, you know, around. So they got a hold of me. They didn't know where to put me. They put me in a pea box, big pea box. They shoved me under a table. Until the inspector came, and he didn't see me, and he walked down. And then I came out. That was very funny. And well, life went on, of course, but we were still happy. We were a very happy family, the children, and of course my mother was a good housewife, and she did everything. And my father, you know, whatever he was able to do to make a living halfway, and where I worked as much as we got paid. But at that time, you know, we were able to get along. The rent was very cheap. And besides that, we had a boarder in the house too, you know, that helped us with the rent. And we got along.
What kind of jobs did your father have? Or I know he had a deli at one time.
My father used to have like a, now they call it fast food, but he was right near the factories. He used to have like a little stand, and lunch hour, you know, he used to go upstairs to the factory and sell food, like fruit and sandwiches and so on. And they made a living. And later on, of course, the children got older, and so my father had a delicatessen store.
I always like the story about you with the salami hanging in front of the store.
I don't think that's...
Yeah, okay. Let's see. What else? Nah, that's not a big deal. What kind of things did you do for fun, for recreation, when you went out and did things? What sort of things?
What did you do for, like, on dates?
We used to go to the movies. There was two for a nickel. They used to let us in to the movies. That's what we used to pay. I had a friend, so she used to say, "Who wants to go to the movies? Who wants to go to the movies? I got 2 cents. Who's got 3 cents?" Yes, yeah, that's what happened. That's what we used to do. Go to the movies for 2 for a nickel. And, you know, it was a silent movie. Comedians, you had to use your imagination, what they were doing, what they were saying. But it was movies.
How about, like, bringing up children? during that time? There's the depression and everything like that. I know Grandpa was having a hard time and all that.
Well, no,
Didn't,
no, it was very nice. Well, we worked. We all worked. My brother, my brother, and who's older than I, and my sister Gertie, we all went to work. And we brought in our pay. We didn't keep it for ourselves.
yeah.
And we got along very, very nice. Things at that time, we had clothes to go to work, and we had clothes to change for the weekend. It's not like today, you got closets full of clothes. We didn't have any closets. We used to have it hang in the back of the door, you know. So we had blouses and a skirt, 2 skirts to change off. We didn't demand. At that time, it wasn't like now, you know, with clothes. And so we got along. Today, it's different times.
Yeah.
Did you ice skate or?
What led
Well,
to
you
your
Why I
family?
didn't? You didn't ask me why I had to leave Russia.
Well, I know.
I didn't have to leave, but my father. Well, my father. I should start talking.
Yeah.
My father was a soldier, and before he was married, he went into the army. He had to be in Russia. And later on, when he got married, and we were 4 children born already, because my youngest brother was born when my father wasn't around. He was away because Japan and Russia were at war, and they were calling in all the men that were soldiers that were, you know, in the army at one time. So my father didn't want to go into the army now to the fight, so he escaped and he went to America.
How did he escape? Do you know?
Yes, and of course he was here he was in England. He stayed with, you know, because my mother had a sister and brother there, so he went direct to England, and he stayed there, and then from England he went to the United States, and he was away about a year. And we were all young children at that time. So, of course, my mother took care of us, and then my mother gave birth. When he left her, she was pregnant with Lou. And she gave birth to Lou, and we were 5 children. My sister Lena was the oldest. And then my brother, and I was the 3rd one. And after the year, he thought that he'd come back because the war was quieted. They settled and quieted down. So he came back, and somebody squealed that he came back. And we went to the government, and they squealed that he came back, that this and this man came back. So they arrested him, and he served in prison for about 3 months. Not in the same town where we lived. It was a town further away. And then when he came out of the prison, of course, we had to, you know, struggle. We had to struggle making a living. And said he's gone back to America. At that time, my sister Lena was already about 16 years old. And he said he'll take her along. She'll go with him. And they went to America, and they stayed here. And my sister Lena was a dressmaker. She was making nice money because she used to sew for all of us when she was home. She was the oldest, and she was able to sew. She used to sew our dresses. Thank you. My sister's and my dress. And here she was, at that time, was considered, maybe she was making about $6, $7 a week. There was a lot of money for her. And after they were here about a year, my father sent us tickets to come to America. And that's how we came.
So how was you making a living in the meantime while he was gone? How did the family...
We were selling, my mother baked bread, and she was selling, and she used to bake like white bread, and the peasants used to love white bread, like hollies.
Wait a minute, I want you to start that over because of the telephone. Okay.
Hung up.
Okay.
While my father was away, my mother worked very hard. She used to sell like sodas. We used to get my brother and I used to go to shop. Mind you, I was about 10 years old, and my brother was 12 years old. So we used to go to town, and the tours we used to bring back, and the peasants used to come and buy things from us. We used to buy all kinds of candies, like, to sell. They used to call it zakerkes, candies. Calling back.
So anyway, you used to bring candy back and sell it?
It's, small things. My mother used to bake white hollies, and she used to sell them to them. White hollies, they used to buy that, and soda, and sometimes she used to have a bottle of brandy if somebody wanted a drink. We used to sell, it didn't make too much, but we were able to get along.
Did you have a garden?
Huh?
Did you have a garden? Did you grow your own vegetables?
And we had, yes, we had, but not too much. Small things, like we used to have potatoes, onions, little small things, and vegetables, radishes, things like that. But that wasn't enough. Of course, we used to buy like chicken from the peasants, and my brother used to take it to town to the sheikh to kill the chicken. So things like that, where it didn't amount to too much at that time, whatever we were able to, And then my father sent some money, from the United States. And he was just about a year here, and he sent for us, and we came here. And the rest I spoke about coming here.
Yeah.
We didn't get that on tape.
No.
Want to say it again?
You didn't get it on?
No, you were just talking over here.
Yeah, you want to tell us again about your three-room flat and how you slept?
And my father had an apartment for us. It was a 3-room apartment, and my grandmother and her daughter, she had an only daughter, my father's sister, came here to this country. And her husband, the daughter's husband, lived in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where also my father had a brother who lived there, and that's why he went direct to Minneapolis. And my grandmother used to live with my aunt, my father's sister, and they came to the United States. So the grandmother came to us. We stayed with us, and my aunt went to Minneapolis, Minnesota. She had 2 children. And then my grandmother stayed with us for about a year or 2. And we had this small apartment where my father and mother had a bedroom with my younger brother, Lou. And we had a big kitchen with 2 folding beds where I slept with my sister, my older sister, and my younger sister slept with my grandmother. And my brother Max slept in the living room on a couch, and we had a boarder who helped us along with the rent on a folding bed.
Do you know how much your rent was then?
So
But you had 2 boarders. One at night.
we had 2 boarders. Yes, my sister went out with her husband when, you know, he was sort of related to the family, you know, like cousins removed and so on, you know. His father was a second cousin to my father, and then my brother-in-law, his name was Sam, and he met my sister, and they fell in love with one another. But he used to work in a restaurant at night, so he used to come and sleep at daytime. And my boarder that used to live with us slept at daytime, slept at night. He worked all day, and then he came to sleep. And in the morning he went away, my brother-in-law came, and he slept for the day. So that's how we had ends
That's how your
meet.
sister met him.
Huh?
That's how she met him?
No, she met him before. So he asked if he can come and sleep here, you know, and so he slept. Then they were married, they got married. And that was it. And we were happy. We were happy. We were very happy.
What else? Got any? Think of anything?
Did you make your clothes or did you buy your clothes back then?
No, she bought her clothes.
We used to buy clothes. As I said, we didn't have too much clothes. We had a dress for Saturday and Sunday to wear, and a dress or a blouse and skirt for going to work in. We didn't have too much.
Every day they washed the blouse. And
That's
I-
right. We had a couple of blouses hanging on the back of the door and a skirt. And maybe one more skirt.
Yeah, they didn't have closets.
No pants?
They
We had no closets.
They had hooks on the back of the
Yeah.
door with the closet.
Start over. Start over.
And he, so he,
Sorry, you can sit there.
he went down.
Oh, close up. Oh.
He went down, but he never ailed. I mean, there was no, we were married for many years, and, you know, he was a healthy man, considering. So he went down, but he had a cold, and he went down to start the car, and he was cranking up the motor, and he came back upstairs, and he just couldn't breathe. But he didn't listen. I begged him not to leave it alone, and not to. He couldn't rest. He's got to go down and start the motor. So he got himself very sick, and of course he couldn't go out. But then the following week, it was still. The weather was still bad, and he had to go up to Buffalo with that Ford. And when he came back, that was his finish. He was very, you know, his valve, was,
The heart valve.
huh? Yeah. It was, you know, he had like the blood didn't circulate to, you know, to his heart, didn't pump. So he was very sick at that time, and he, you know, then he felt better and he got along, and of course he took care a little bit of himself. You know, he didn't travel around so much. And that time, you know, that's how he got. There was no. I don't think there was. Everybody used to crank,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, everybody used to crank the. You know, and later on he was all right until. Something happened to his retina. You know, he had. He never wanted to give in to see a doctor. He had a bloodshot eye. I said to him, "It's 3 days already. Your eye is a bloodshot." He says, "I have a cold in my eye." I used to give him. I should make him, you know, with some bicarbonate soda. Make him. He should apply it to his eye. So finally, I went after him, and he first went. He never wanted to go to the doctor. He went to a doctor, to an eye doctor, and when he came back, I said to him, "What did the doctor say?" She says, "I had what did he have in his eye?
Cataract?
Huh?
Cataract?
No, didn't have a
detached
cataract.
retina?
No. He had a blood shot. What do you call it?
Blood clot?
Huh?
Blood clot?
A blood, yeah, in his eye. So I says, "No, that's not a cold anymore. Now you have to go to a bigger man." And this man happened to be a very good eye doctor. He operated on my mother when she was about 75 on a cataract. I said, "I want you to go to this doctor." And I made him go, and I went with him. When he examined him, he said to me, "I'm very sorry to tell you, but you have a detached retina." And he says, "You have to get into the hospital, you'll have to be operated." When he heard that, he said, he couldn't get over it. He says, and he couldn't get him into the hospital at the Manhattan Eye and Ear, where I was operated now. There was no room there. So he said, "Go home, and I want you to let..." So he said, "Okay," and he let us in as an emergency. We came in, we told him what doctor we are coming from, and he said he has to be operated, and we want to have another opinion. So he examined him, and he says, "Go back to that doctor, and he's a very, very fine doctor, and he'll do a good job." And of course it was a question of 50-50. If he might lose his eye, or there'll be success. And it was a success. It was successful. But you know, at that time, with a retina operation, he had to lay in the hospital for 3 weeks with 2 bags, one on each side, sandbags. He wasn't allowed to move, just lay straight. The man couldn't eat. He didn't eat. I had to go every day to the hospital and feed him with a little spoon while he was laying for 21 days. He was laying. that didn't move. Today, when they operate on a retina, a couple of days, they're off the bed and they're home in a week. They don't even stay a week there. And at that time, it was in the 50s, I think, late 40s, 50. At that time, that was for anybody. When I gave birth to Seen on the hospital, I had to lay in bed for 2 weeks. And I got a milk leg.
Huh.
That's right. So after he lost an awful lot of weight, and because of that, the heart, his condition that he had as a youngster, rheumatic heart, began to, came back. And it began to give him, a lot of trouble. And he was losing weight all along. And I called in, and he didn't eat. He looked terrible. He couldn't walk. So we called in a doctor, and he said he has to go back to a hospital after he came out of that hospital. And we told him what the trouble was with him, and he didn't want to go to the hospital. He didn't want to go to the hospital. Everybody his 2 sisters came there, my sister-in-laws, and they talked to him. And we called another doctor that we associated with. He came to him and he said to him, "You have to go to the hospital, otherwise," he says, "you're not going to live." He told it to him plain. So finally, he consented and got into the hospital. He was in the hospital for 3 days. He lost 6 pounds. 6 pounds. Why? How did he know it? When I came in, he was laying in bed and crying. He says, "I lost 6 pounds." Got into the hospital, and when we came in Sunday, that's what he told me. I says, "How do you know?" He says, "The nurse weighed me, and she told me how much I weigh. And I knew I lost 6 pounds." So he was in that hospital for 6 weeks, and they gave him penicillin. They fed him with penicillin until they got him back on his feet, and he was all right. From then on, he was fine. He was all right. And that's the time when Daddy taught you how to drive, right?
What?
When Daddy taught you how to drive,
Yeah.
and Sina too, I think, the 2 of you.
I remember.
Yeah, but you were the first one. And he used to take me to the hospital with the car, used to go. And every day I had to travel to the hospital. I lived in, where did we live that time? Yeah, in Dean Street. We lived in Dean Street, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the hospital was in Borough Park. Used to travel there. It was a hardship. And, but thank God he came through, and he came home. He had a very, very good doctor taking care of him, a blood doctor. And from then, he got along very nicely, and in later years, it got him again. And that's what happened. When she gave birth to Eric, we came here while she was taken to the hospital. Joe called us, and we came, and we stayed here already for the rest of the week. And we were to the bris when, the bris was on a Thursday, and Sunday, we said Friday or Sunday, we said we're going to go home because she had a girl here in the house and she was all right. But all of a sudden, she said she didn't feel so good. I think you were bleeding or something.
Yeah.
So we decided to stay. So we stayed until Monday. Monday she felt better, and I think the doctor was here and he said she's all right, she'll be all right. And we went home on Monday. We came home, and while he was
You stayed
here,
because of their show.
huh?
You stayed because of their
Oh yeah,
show.
my band was playing.
Yeah, your band and the girls.
girls
were
with a
the
go-go
talent
dance.
show.
They were
So
dancing,
yeah.
yeah. And then when we got home,
Well, I remember he was sick while you were
that's
here.
right. He
Doctor
wasn't
came to
feeling
see him.
well. He wasn't feeling well. He used to get like pell-mells, you know. All of a sudden, he's standing and he's davening. He had, you know, his tallis on, and he was davening. And all of a sudden, the little siddur, the little book, fell out of his hands. And I noticed that there's something wrong. So I got a hold of him, and I says, come inside and sit down on the chair. So he came inside, and he sat down. He says, I'm all right, I'm all right. And it happened once before. We went to Florida. We were in Florida. Before that, we were in Florida, and it happened in Florida too. We were in the room, and Evelyn's in-laws were in Florida at that time too, and they came over to the hotel, and they spent the evening with us in the room, and then they left, and I went down to, you know, see them leave, and then about 10 minutes later I came up, and I see he's sitting on the chair, and you know, he looked different to me. I says, what's the matter, Max? I figured maybe he hurt himself or he fell. He started to mumble. He couldn't talk. Oh, I went to the telephone immediately, and I called the desk, and I said, connect me with this doc. No, I called my sister-in-law. I wanted her doctor, and to me, I thought he had like a little stroke. He had a little stroke. Within that 10 minutes, I was downstairs and I came up and there was a change in him. So nothing showed before. So I called it, and I was connected with the doctor immediately, and I called him and I told him, I says, I think according to, you know, I think he had like a little stroke. Will you come here? So he says, yes. So he came within, and he called an ambulance, and they took him to the hospital there. He was in the hospital there was no room in the hospital, but the doctor stayed with him until 3 o'clock in the morning. Till 3 o'clock in the morning, he stayed with him and waited.
Want some apricot?
No. And waited until they got him a room.
That's all right.
Until they got him a room. He stayed, and he wouldn't leave until he got a nurse for him. So and he got a nurse, 3 o'clock in the morning. He woke that nurse up and told her to come. And she came. And she was with him in the room. And next day when I came in, you know, they were treating him. He was still, his mouth was a little bit on the side. And he started mumbling. I said, all right, don't talk, don't talk. But it took a few days, and his mouth came back natural, and he was able to say a few words. He was in the hospital about 2 weeks. Came out, he was all right. After that, he was all right again. And this incident happened here at that time. And when we got home on Monday, that week was Thanksgiving. Thursday was Thanksgiving. And I called up Sina, and I says to her, Sina, will you come here I'll get a small turkey and you come here, we'll have Thanksgiving dinner. So she says, I'll let you know when Stanley comes home. I'll talk to him and I'll let you know. I didn't listen. I went out and I bought a small turkey and I came home and I began making supper, and he was all right. And we sat down to eat. I made fish, I broiled fish, and I had applesauce. By the applesauce, he keeled over and died.
I remember
on
that
Monday.
night.
Yeah. When we came back from here.
Yeah, it was the day after you left here, right?
That's right.
Left
Same
here.
day. Same day.
It was that night. I thought you left here on Sunday.
Monday.
You left here Monday.
Monday. Came home Monday in the morning.
Yeah, I remember the doctor came here to see him
That's right.
and checked him out
Yeah.
in here. And, you know, told him, you'll be fine, you'll be dancing at my bar mitzvah. He told him, I remember.
Yeah.
But
I remember I went to your house that time, and I came back to tell Violet, and
Yeah.
you know, I just couldn't tell her what happened.
yeah.
I
I don't
was,
know, I had a feeling when you left here that day, I knew that was the last time I was going to see him.
That's
I
right.
remember thinking that
Yeah.
when you left, that was going to be it. But then you wouldn't
He
tell us
finished.
for a couple
He
of
finished the
days.
salad. He finished the fish.